When I was in Nepal in 2020, the first time I was there, I was doing Everest Base Camp, and we cut the corner after Namche Bazaar, and you see this funny looking peak, kind of like a thumb, and it just looks spectacular. And I said to myself at that point, one day I'm going to summit. And then I find myself 4 years later in November 2024 on the top of that same summit. So it was kind of for me an opportunity to come full circle with just starting out in kind of my high altitude career, if you want to call it that, and kind of come full circle and see, Everest and a couple other mountains as some of the next potential objectives.
A few minutes ago, around 8:21 local time, we fucking did it. We summited Ama Dablam. Couldn't have done it with my climbing Sherpa, Paljor Sherpa. It's in the background. Probably gonna have a dart momentarily to celebrate, but holy fuck, it feels good.
Well, my name's Anozy. I work in finance right now, and I climb mountains as an amateur, I guess you can say. So I've always been exposed to the outdoors, and ever since then, as I got older, I was looking for something more challenging. So I did a lot of backcountry camping trips in Algonquin, Killarney, and then from there, I just thought, what's the next challenge? So I started with Everest Base Camp in Nepal, and then after that, I come back. What's the next challenge? What's more difficult? Then I did Kilimanjaro, and then just climbing in Ecuador, been to Nepal a few times. So got a lot of experience, I think, and a lot of expeditions planned going forward as well. And when I was in Nepal in 2020, the first time I was there, I was doing Everest Base Camp, and we cut the corner after Namche Bazaar, and you see this funny looking peak, kind of like a thumb. And it just looks spectacular. And I said to myself at that point, one day I'm going to summit. And then I find myself 4 years later in November 2024 on the top of that same summit. So it was kind of for me an opportunity to come full circle with just starting out in kind of my high altitude career, if you want to call it that, and kind of come full circle and see, Everest and a couple other mountains as some of the next potential objectives.
And as an experienced mountaineer, how did you approach training for Ama Dablam?
Well, at first I was just doing a lot of running down by Lakeshore, a lot of training at Good Life. I didn't really know fully how to train for the climb. I just thought lots of cardio, lots of strength training is good. And then before I did Aconcagua, I stumbled upon Altitude Athletic, and I was able to get a more comprehensive approach about how to train in the mountains and also train at altitude. And I think that's really kind of accelerated my fitness level and has allowed me to climb without any altitude issues in the past, and hopefully will allow me to climb without any altitude issues going forward.
Okay, Adam, take me back to landing in Nepal. Who was on your team? What was going through your mind? What was it like?
So we landed in Kathmandu. It's a pretty long flight from Toronto. We connected through Dubai. So you land in Kathmandu. I landed pretty late, so we had to do gear check at the hotel at about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was pretty exhausted. I didn't really want to do that and just go right to bed. But on my summit team, it was myself and a famous Croatian chef by the name of Matija. So we got along pretty well. He owns, I think, a couple Michelin star restaurants in Croatia, so it was nice to have someone pretty close to my own age. And we bonded pretty well along the climb. So after we landed in Kathmandu, the next day we drove out to I forgot what it was called. It was like an 8-hour drive through the mountains. You weren't flying out of Kathmandu because it was busy season, so they don't have enough volume of planes going to Lukla. So we had to drive out 8 hours and fly from there. Thankfully, we didn't get any weather delays. The days before us, they had about 4 or 5 days of no flying weather. So it was a big backlog that we had to deal with. So it's about a 30-minute flight from there to Lukla. You land in Lukla, you have breakfast, you get settled, wait for your gear to arrive. and you slowly start trekking through the mountains. And the next day you get up to Namche Bazaar, which is one of my favorite parts of any expedition in Nepal. It's kind of the capital of the Sherpa climbing community. Lots of bars to visit on the way back down. Don't drink on the way up, but it's a good way to see kind of how the Nepalese people live, and kind of you see a lot of tourists there, so you get to meet a lot of cool people, and that's kind of where you can kind of lay down base for a couple of days, rest up, acclimatize, and kind of move further up the mountain. So that's pretty much the same start for the first three of my visits to Nepal, and I'm sure it'll be very similar for anyone else that does something like this.
And now to get a little bit into the route to the summit, what did kind of each section or kind of each day look like?
So you get to base camp.
So after 5 days of trekking, finally reached Ama Dablam base camp, or in this case, the area where the lodge is located, as we're not going to be staying in tents this time around. Got a beautiful view of the objective of the trip. Just excited to have some more ginger tea, acclimatize, and rest up for tomorrow's training day.
The worst part is probably going from base camp to camp 1, because it's long. I think it took us probably about 8 hours or so from base camp to camp 1, and it's about 1,000 meters in an elevation gain.
Finished the puja ceremony about an hour ago or so, as we're starting our first rotation on the mountain. So I had to ask for permission to climb during the puja and for safe passage. Today, heading up to camp 1, I think about 50, 58, 57, 100 meters or so. It's gonna be a tough trek up there, carrying about 30, 35 pounds. So we're gonna be doing a little load carry to camp 2 tomorrow. Stash some key equipment for the summit push.
It being so long and so much higher than base camp, we didn't have too much time to acclimatize. We were only acclimatized to about, I think, 5,000 meters, and camp 1 is, I think, 5,700, if memory serves me well. So you get there to camp 1, it's a pretty easy trek. You're not using a harness or anything yet, no ice axes. It's just long and tough.
Climbing for the last 6 hours or so. Quite difficult to get to camp 1. The guides we're not kidding. Paul Jor back there, it's a piece of cake for him. Having a hard time keeping up, but we're able to see camp 1 in the back. We got about another 45, 60 minutes or so.
You get to camp 1, I had a pounding headache. I was tired, little to no appetite, and you're sleeping on rocks. There's no really flat ground, so the first night sleep was basically non-existent. You're not getting much. Thankfully, me and my tent mate or climbing buddy Mate were able to just kind of shoot the shit a little bit and kind of take away the misery of the headache on camp 1 together.
Okay, so we just got to camp 1 finally. It took us about 7 hours or so. I mean, Mate and I were just chilling, enjoying some tea. This tent is fucked, by the way. Slanted all over. Rocks under your ass, rocks under your head. It's going to be a interesting night of sleep. But the good thing is, we got nice little sunset view outside the tent. Apparently looks better on the other side, but I'm honestly too fucking tired to get back up. Maybe we'll take a look at the sunrise, since it's just after 5 o'clock here, and we'll probably be fast asleep within an hour or so. And then tomorrow, make our way up to Camp 2 and the famous Yellow Tower, which I think is going to be pretty fucked, considering how tough today was. But you know, if there's anyone that can do it, it's the Croatian and the Canadian duo. So. We'll see you on day 4.
And then from there you go to Camp 2, which gets a little bit more technical. You hit patches of ice and rock. You start climbing with the harness, safety ropes, and you get up to the infamous yellow tower before you get up to Camp 2, which is pretty tough. It took about, I think, 15 minutes or so to Jumar up. There's not too much rock to grab onto. It's very slick, and that part was pretty tiring. You get up to the top of that, it's almost kind of, I think, 50 meters straight up, and you're absolutely gassed. And from there you have maybe another 30-40 minutes to Camp 2, which absolutely stinks. It's not it's not a pleasant smell up there. It's so small. Everyone does their business on the side of the mountain, so it's not the best. But the wind blows that away fairly quickly. So you have a rest there. We went right back down to base camp. So that was part of our rotation on the mountain. And in a couple of days, we got back up to Camp 2.
So after about three hours or so from Camp 1, finally made it over to Camp 2, just under 6,000 meters above sea level. Fuck, it was a tough one. Not much room for tents. Looks even scarier in person versus the pictures. We gotta make it all the way back down to base camp over there. The views, unreal. And that's the summit right there. Back in a few days' time to conquer that beast. Probably going to be about a 10-12 hour summit push or so, but I think we're ready for it. So after 7 hours, back at Camp 1, kind of feels like deja vu, except for the fact that I'm feeling a lot better than last time. Matthias still kind of feels like shit.
Yeah, headache.
Views are still views are still pretty solid out there, so I'm gonna chill here for a bit. I think Puri and Paljor are gonna make some fucking fire dinner later. I don't know what's on the menu, but it should be pretty good. We're just gonna kick it here and get some rest and make it over to Camp 2 tomorrow. That's gonna be a lot shorter of a day, probably about three and a half hours or so, and then rest up and make a bit for the summit. Let's fucking go.
A couple of days, we got back up to Camp 2.
Day 5. Fucking tough. Finally got to Camp 2. A little bit of a queue at the yellow tower, so probably have to wait 2.5 hours altogether. So got here a little later than expected. So we got about 8 hours of rest or so before we suit up for the summit push. It's gonna be a fucking tough one. I can already feel it, but I believe we can do it. Matthew, you want to show us the views out there? Oh, fucking sexy.
Yeah. Where we started the summit push around, I think it was midnight or something, or just before midnight. We were out of the tents and gearing up with our down suits, crampons, and climbing. The route from Camp 2 to Camp 3, I don't really remember much of it. It was so early in the summit push. I just remember there being something called, I think it was the gray tower, which is supposedly higher than the yellow tower and tougher, but I don't remember it being tougher. I just remember getting to Camp 3, at which point the worst part of the climb starts, and that's the 70-degree slope from Camp 3 up the Marsham Ridge to the summit. So that was probably the toughest part of the climb. But I think what I was able to do well throughout the entire trip to kind of prepare myself for the entire challenge was to acclimatize properly. And there's a lot of techniques that I use. Like, I'll drink at least 5, 6, 7 liters of water a day, which is, I think, one of the most important things to stay hydrated and to move with purpose. So throughout the trekking to base camp, you don't want to have any kind of exaggerated moves. If you don't have to move fast, just move slow. That goes into, when you go wake up in the middle of the night to use the washroom, walk slow, don't waste energy waste as little energy as possible, because that's going to pay dividends when you get onto the summit push. So I see a lot of people, I think they're mostly trekkers, but they're using a lot of energy and not kind of moving with purpose and as slowly as they should be in a high altitude environment. So I think that does hurt them to a degree. But you learn that over time. The guides kind of teach you that. So I think that was able to help me not make the mountain as hard as it normally is, but still a challenge in and of itself. It took us 5 hours from Camp 2 to Camp 3, and another 5 hours from Camp 3 to the summit. And it's straight up. You don't get too much of a break. You're 70 degrees on the Jumar and the fixed line, so it's pretty tough and taxing because you feel like it's never going to end. And when you're 20 minutes away from the summit, it feels like you're still 2 hours away from the summit. But for me personally, I think the toughest part was the part after Camp 3, where you go on to the snow cap there, and it's 70 degrees straight up for 5 hours. And at that point, the sun's already come up, so you can see what sort of progress you're making. Between Camp 2 and Camp 3 was pitch black, so we didn't know what sort of progress was making. And I actually like that, because you don't start to think, oh, I could still see Camp 2. It's, we haven't gone that far in the mountain. I got 80% more of this mountain or this summit push, and then you kind of have an oh fuck moment where you maybe kind of don't want to push yourself as much, because the burden of completing that 80% versus turning back on 20% is just, the motivation's not there. The guys tell you not to look up after Camp 3, but everyone looks up. It's kind of tough too, so it's kind of seeing how little progress you make, step over step, kind of really makes it tough mentally. And there was a couple points on that section of the mountain where I was like, I don't know if I could do this. It's just kind of, then you look around, you see the sun rise, you kind of see the views that you're able to kind of get so far, and you just know they're going to be so much better on the summit. So you try to push through, but that was the moment where I was like, this is a tough climb. I don't know if I can make it, but then I think Paljor gave me some Red Bull, or Nepalese version of it, and we're able to go up to the summit. So I think that part was pretty tough.
Final moments before we step onto the summit of Ama Dablam. Fuck, it's been intense.
Then eventually you get to the summit. It's it's a nice plateau. It's very flat. So it's pretty beautiful up there, and I was able to have the summit to myself for about 20-30 minutes before my climbing partner Mattia was able to join me there.
So about a few minutes ago, around 8:21 local time, we fucking did it. We summited Ama Dablam. Couldn't have done it with my climbing Sherpa, Paljor Sherpa. It's in the background. I'm gonna have Darth momentarily to celebrate. Holy fuck, it feels good. Last couple moments were certainly touch and go, but it feels fucking fantastic to be up here. We got beautiful views up the Himalayas. I'll show you in the background over there. Nepal, Everest, let's say. We've got some tell over there, but I'll double check. We got Kachinchunga in distance over there, right?
Yeah, it's
Kachinchunga?
Can you see the last one?
Yeah.
That one's Kanchenjunga.
And that's Macau over there, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful clear skies. Finally a summit where we get to see the views. Tia and Puri up in a second to join us, but for now we're just gonna take it in. We're the only ones on the summit. That certainly feels fucking great.
And funny enough, there's a funny picture of me just lying on my back on the summit, just taking a little nap, because I was absolutely exhausted.
When you reached the summit, what did that moment mean to you, and what was it like?
It felt pretty good. I trained probably for 5 months. Was on the road or in Nepal for 3 weeks, or I think 2.5 weeks by that point. So to kind of reach the summit and to have a summit where I was able to see the views and not be obstructed by the clouds was pretty nice. And have it to myself was even more special. Me and my Sherpa, Paljor Sherpa, the two of us were able to kind of relax. I think he was smoking a cigarette, honestly. I don't know how he did it. But it's a feeling that's tough to explain when you work that hard to kind of just go to the summit for 40 minutes. A lot of people would think that's crazy, but you don't really know what that feels like until you get there yourself. It's kind of a feeling that nothing else, I think, would be able to come close to, no matter what happens, what else you accomplish in life, unless you're different than I am. But I think reaching the summit of a very very tough and notorious mountain is a big accomplishment, and you kind of feel that come across your face after you've been climbing for 10 hours, absolutely dehydrated as well. So it's beautiful just to kind of see a 360 view of Nepal, and you kind of see the route that you came from, and you kind of have a holy shit kind of moment, like that's base camp down there. I came all this way up, so it's pretty surreal. It only took us 10 hours from Camp 2 to the summit, but then the way down I thought was a lot tougher, and it usually is. A lot of climbers will spend all the energy to get up to the summit, but you forget that there's another part to climb. Getting up to the summit is only half of it. You have to get back down and get back down safely. So after we reached the summit, I think we were there for 40 minutes or something. Had I think it was a Nepalese Red Bull that Paljor gave me, and started climbing back down. I took more breaks on the way down, so it was pretty slow going. It got pretty hot, so I had to take my down suit off. And we got to took us how long? I forgot how long it took us to Camp 2, but it was pretty slow going because there was a lot of traffic on the way down as well. And I think at one point we ran out of water, so I just kept stopping fairly frequently, just trying to put a little bit of still in my mouth. Probably shouldn't have done that, but it was very safe patches I was looking at. So my mouth was too dry, and we were going very slow. And we reached Camp 2 probably just before sunset. I want to say around 4-ish o'clock. So we had a little bit of food to eat, and then Paljor asked me, "Do you want to sleep at Camp 2, or you just want to go to base camp?" And after eating a little bit of food, having some water, I felt pretty good. So I said, fuck it, let's go to base camp. Let's have a good night's sleep. So then we went down the Yellow Tower as it was getting dark. Kind of traversed all the way down to Camp 1. Had a little break there. Dropped a few stuff off with the porter to pick up the next day, as I didn't want to carry another 45 pounds down from Camp 1 to base camp. And then we trekked all the way down to base camp in pitch black. My head torch actually ran out of battery because we were using it for so long, and the backup didn't work. And we got to back to base camp at around 11 p.m., 12 p.m. That same day, and we started the summit at about, I think it was midnight or so. So pretty much a 24-hour day, and it was a pretty tough one, the longest summit push I've had. I didn't have to make it a 24-hour day, but I felt pretty strong and comfortable enough to descend down. And just at that point, I didn't want to go on the mountain anymore. I just wanted to have a soft pillow to lay my head on and sleep. I think I slept for about 12 hours after that, so it was the right call. And then Matsuo joined me the next day. He slept at Camp 2. He couldn't make it, but he wasn't training at altitude, so.
And how did your approach to training change once you started working out here at altitude?
I just feel like I became more dedicated. I would always work out at 6 a.m. Before work. And when I was doing that at either my condo gym or at Good Life, sometimes I'd wake up like, oh, I could skip this day. I didn't feel as committed because with altitude here you have community of other climbers that you're always chatting about. Your climbers, they're always asking you, what are you doing next? What are you climbing? So it kind of fuels the motivation as well to you kind of show up every day, see the same people, train with them, and hopefully share some successful summit stories with each other at a future point.
And what role did the team at altitude play in making this dream possible?
So Yath, my coach, was very helpful in terms of creating a training program for me that was specific to the mountain that I was climbing, Ama Dablam. we worked on techniques and kind of stepping exercises that you'd expect on the mountain, and strengthening the shoulders for the fixed rope Jumar climbing, of which there was a lot of. So they were very deliberate and specific in terms of, this is the route we're climbing. This is kind of the physical exertion you're going to experience on the climb. Let's try to replicate that, at the gym at altitude. And we were able to work on the generator, which gets you a little bit higher than the 3,000 meters. So it was a very customized and curated program that was, for me, very helpful in dealing with the altitude. It was only that one night on Camp 1 where we didn't really have proper acclimatization that I had a crazy headache. But the next day we got up to Camp 2 and back down to base camp, and I felt fine. So it was just that one night of pain, which typically you'll experience on a larger expedition. But the team was very, very helpful. Any questions I had, Yat was able to assist, and the rest of the team is always very helpful and friendly to fill in if Yat's not around.
Yeah, for anyone watching this who's dreaming of climbing Ama Dablam, what would you say to them?
Don't climb. Get a lot of preparation. Ama Dablam wasn't my first big mountain. Before that, I did Aconcagua, which is about 100 meters taller than Ama Dablam, so I was able to see how my body reacts to being almost at 7,000 meters. Aconcagua is not as technical, but it is still very physically demanding. Very similar length of itinerary. It was also a three-week trip, very far to get to from Toronto as well, down in almost near Patagonia. So I think it's important to kind of build up your climbing resume very, very slowly. Start small. You can dream big, start small, but dream big. You don't want to get into a situation where you have minimal experience and you paid thousands of dollars to climb Ama Dablam and you don't summit successfully. It's I don't know what the feeling's like, because I've been successful on all my summits. But I could imagine that it's very painstaking, because you've taken all your personal time away from friends, family for 3 weeks to attempt the mountain and not summit successfully. That might you might learn something from that. It might teach you, but the goal is to go out there and have a successful summit. So I think it's most important to build, work up slowly, do as many climbs as you can at altitude, train at altitude. And then work up to Ama Dablam, which is a very beautiful mountain, but also deceivingly tough. So also I think it's worth noting that on Aconcagua there was an incident on the mountain. My tent mate on the summit push was unable to come back down from the mountain. We're not exactly sure what happened. He was frankly in better shape than I was. He did a couple Ironmans before going to Aconcagua, and it was quite a sudden incident. So I don't think the guides thought it was altitude related, because it was very sudden. Suspected it was brain aneurysm, stroke, or something that came on the mountain. But I do recall, going down from the summit, seeing him on his way up to the summit, and giving him props on my way down, and seeing that, or telling him that I'll see him back at base camp. I didn't think twice of it. And when we got back to base camp, he was kind of struggling. The guides mentioned that he hasn't made it back yet, but he'll be there in the morning, and he never made it back in the morning. They were unable to rescue him. So it kind of illustrates the dangers of climbing. It's it could happen to anyone. Like I said, this individual was in much better shape than I was. But just being in better shape doesn't mean you're immune from the dangers of climbing. You have to be mindful of rockfall, ice risks, avalanches, you name it, or pushing yourself too hard, which I think happened in this case. That maybe he thought he was doing well, hiding his symptoms. And if you're struggling at altitude, tell the guides. Don't be shy; they're there to help you, and it's not worth risking your life for a summit. You can always go back back next year if you have to. I think it's just worth noting that climbing is dangerous.
Yeah, I noticed your tattoos. Can you tell us more about them?
Yeah, so it's all 14 mountains above 8,000 meters, starting at the lowest up to Everest at the top there. So the inspiration behind that was that I don't find myself in a position where I'm in the mountains week in, week out. I only climb about once a year or so when I'm lucky and I get the time off work. So it allows me to kind of be, kind of cheesy, but be with the mountains at all times. So that's where the inspiration came from, and it kind of reminds me of one of the crazier objectives I have is to be able to summit all 14 8,000 meter peaks. which I think only about 60 or 70 people in the entire world have done. So it's a pretty crazy feat, and it just kind of continues to motivate me every day. It is on the crazier side of some of the things I'd like to do, but you got to dream big, but start small. So climb your way up there slowly but surely.
What's next for you? What are your upcoming plans?
So next I got a couple mountains in Peru. I'll be attempting Alpamayo, Chupacabra, and Tocoraju. So it's three mountains that are basically almost all at 6,000 meters within a 3-week window. So it's going to be pretty tough physically. I think tougher physically than Ama Dablam, because there are three mountains almost back to back with minimal rest in between, and they're a little bit even more technical than Ama Dablam. So it'll be my first time in Peru. I'm pretty excited to be heading out there, and I've been training at altitude for a few months now, and I think that's going to help me be successful in the trip. And yeah, it's been great in helping curate the program to something that's very specific to the routes we'll be doing on these mountains in Peru. And after that, maybe one of the 8,000-meter peaks. It's just for me in finance, it's tough to get more than 3 weeks off, so I might have to sweet talk my boss a little bit on that one, but we'll see what the future holds.
Punk rock vibes, 57 and 50 meters above sea level. That's the fucking way to do it.